All right, so today, continuing our series, today's message, the dangers of debt. And I've got all of these. We're going to go slide by slide because I got a lot of numbers. Hopefully you can see that, because some of the font on some of these things is a little small. So if you can see this one, then. So I want to start off with a verse of Scripture. Proverbs 22:7, the borrower is slave to the lender. The borrower is slave to the lender. And that's going to be our theme that we're going to look at in further detail, very practical way today. Dave Ramsey is a very popular Christian finance guru out there. And I like this quote. So I included it. Debt doesn't just steal from wallets. It steals peace, purpose, and the ability to give freely. And when so many in your congregation are carrying that burden, it sidelines the mission God gave your church. Said, whoo! I think that's certainly true of the American church, in general. So here's what really I'm always looking for little things that, and when you're trying to put together a series and you're trying to break it down, I kind of have a folder and I'm putting different materials in that folder. Well, there was a 2026, early in January, Bankrate, I guess, came out with a credit card report. And here's what they found. Now, these are just averages. The numbers really don't matter. And if you don't think they necessarily apply in your life, that's fine. It's to illustrate a deeper point. But they found that 53% of all those who have credit cards pay off the balance every month. Okay? Which means 47% of credit card holders carry debt month to month. Now, of those who are carrying debt, so that's of the 47, two-thirds of them carry it for over a year. So whatever they charge on the credit card, they don't pay off that month, and it might not be 2 months, 3 months, 4. Two-thirds of them carry it for over a year. They found 1/3 carry it for over 3 years, and 1 out of 5 with credit card debt. Just that's of the 47. 1 out of 5 of the 47% with credit card debt month to month. They're paying for over 5 years. Okay, so just to break it down a little bit easier, 53 out of 100 credit card holders, 53 pay it off every month in full. 47 carry balances. 18 of the 47 would have a balance for under a year. So maybe you're paying a couple months of, I just put 6 months, average 6 months. You're paying interest to the bank because you're unable to pay it off each and every month. Okay, 29 of the 47 carry a balance for over a year. So 18 of the 47 under, 29 of the 47 over. 14 of those 29, 1 to 3 years. 5 of the 29, 3 to 5 years. And 10, so 10% of all credit card holders are paying on their balance for over 5 years. Okay? Now, I don't know anything about your spending habits, so don't look at me like I'm trying to, I'm going to judge based upon your face. So just be stone cold like Tanya is right now. She ain't giving anything. She's not saying she's good or bad. All right. All right, so let me give you the worst case scenario. This is really important. This is practical math. Very thankful. I don't know if my dad will, sometimes he watches these once I post them, but he was amazing. He really was good with math. He was good with finances. He paid his house off in 13 years. And we're not talking major, just 2 average people working salaries. But he was like, save, save, save. All I heard was save, save, We would not go out to eat. It was a rare occurrence of ever going out to eat. He was a hard worker, and he kind of passed it on to his children. So here's how the worst case works when it comes to debt. So generally, the standard minimum payment formula each month is about 1% of your balance. So of course, I typed in, what's the average? What do you think the average credit card debt is? Average. Now, some people have a lot higher. California and Hawaii, double the average. some others. So if you typed it in, No, not fit. It's 6,500. 6,500 is what they came up. California was like, and Hawaii were like $14,000, $15,000. All right. So the average credit card debt, $6,500 per person. Now the average rate about 22%. I mean, that's crazy. What is your house mortgage? Some people got them all the way down to in the 3s or 2s, right? 22%. So I guess the way they do this, divide 22% by 12, 1.833%. You'll see why this. And let's just assume no new charges. We're just going to work with no new charges, which is not even realistic, but we'll go with it for the moment. All right, so month one, balance is $6,500. So you're going to pay $119 in interest, and your principal payment, 1%, is $65. So your total payment is $184. If you're just going to pay minimum wage, okay? This is the trap. This is the trick, is paying minimum wage. So minimum payment to the bank, 65%. That first month's payment, 65%, 2/3 goes to the bank. And 1/3 goes to paying off your purchase or whatever that principal is. So using standard math, I should have not put that up there. I should have asked you to guess. All right, just paying the minimum. And the bank, trust me, the bank wants you to pay the least amount they want you to pay the minimum. But the federal government, they actually had a worse scenario 40 years ago, or 30, 40, maybe it was 20. And the federal government made them, because they knew people were being taken advantage of, so they made them increase this to 1% of your principal. It used to be less than that. The payoff time is almost 6 years. And remember, 10% of all credit card holders have been paying on their debts, their credit card, for over 5 years. So there's a lot of people that are just paying the minimum amount each month. All right? Now, remember, let's just say, I'll get to that in a moment. All right, so here's the numbers. 5.7 years, you're going to pay approximately $10,700. So the total interest you're paying is $4,200 over the course of that time period.
And that's if you don't use the card for anything else.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Exactly right. All right. Okay, so let's say this. So you need vacation, right? Let's do vacation. We need new furniture. Let's say Christmas gifts. You borrow $6,500 for that vacation. But you pay minimum payments. It takes you 5.7 years to pay that off. You're going to pay $10,000. That vacation was not $6,500. That furniture was not $6,500. It was $10,700. And I shouldn't have put this in red because it's hard to see, but you paid, this is per year, $1,300 the first year, because if you ever looked at those charts for your house or the amortization chart, they reverse. But $1,300, $1,100, $800, $600, $300, and then the last 0.7 years, half a year, is only $100 in interest, because the bank got their money. So they're gonna pay more on your principal at the end rather than up front. So that vacation, that Christmas gift, that furniture was a lot more expensive than you realize. And this assumes you never miss a payment, the rate never increases, and you don't add new charges. So going back again, the borrower is a slave to the lender. Do you see how manipulative, deceitful banks can be? Or is it, and I hate to say this, is it our foolishness? Now, some of us were never trained. We've just never told. We're just unaware. They don't. Boy, can you imagine if they taught a finance class in high school? I mean, how many of us have, learned the hard way? So when this is financial slavery, because your future labor is already spoken for. All right, which means the money that you're going to make in the future is going to pay your past. All right, that's like you're not making any new money. You're still owing on what you did years ago. Future generosity is reduced. Future opportunities are constrained, and you know what goes up big time? Emotional stress. Because when you're in debt, it is stressful, super stressful. All right. And I think it's a poor stewardship of God's resources. So, as Ann mentioned, Imagine adding $65 more debt per month. So you got $6,500, 22% interest. You're doing minimum payments, but you continue charging $65 of principal. That's adding to your balance. So think about this. The minimum you're paying is $65 of principal, but every month you're adding $65 of principal. So your balance never goes down. Do you see what? So if your balance is never going down, you are indefinitely paying $120 to the bank every single month, every month to the bank in interest. And that is going to be about $1,400 a year in interest with no progress on the principal. Charging more than $65 only is going to increase your balance and your interest. All right. This is how somebody stays in debt for 5+ years, is paying the minimum. Can't pay the minimum. It's a trick. It's a trap. That's slavery. Now, all right. So when Christians carry consumer debt long term, we are funding banks instead of missions or ministries. We just talked about 2 children. Why did I put? Oh man, my math was way off. Way off. What I did? If it's $40 per child, it's 3 children. Okay. But it was $40 a child. You're paying $119 for minimum payment interest. That's equivalent to 3 children. Or you calculate all of that throughout the year. That's $1,400. That's almost what we paid to go to Guatemala for a week. So instead of it going to the bank, it could be a mission trip every single year. Isn't that amazing? If you reverse the math. All right. So the system is designed to trap people who are careless, foolish, or unaware. And credit card companies are as profitable as they are because they're taking advantage of the 47% that are not paying off their card monthly. Now, saying that, look, there are times when we have survival expenses. But I'm mostly talking about lifestyle expenses, maybe unnecessary lifestyle expenses. And one of the commitments that Kristen and I have made is we will never charge something that we don't already have the money for in our savings account. And we always pay it off every single month. And thankfully, I think I attribute this to my father because of his influence from early on. I've never paid a single dollar in interest in my entire life on a credit card, ever. Now, I'm maybe a unique category that maybe perhaps a number of you can't say that. But again, I was trained by an amazing father who took the initiative and helped me out early on. Yes, ma'am.
That's true because a lot of children, like when I grew up, my parents never taught us about money.
Exactly. Right. Yep. And I want to get this to the very end because all of you guys have a responsibility. It's not just, I think it's a great idea for the school system. I mean, because we're dealing with money every single day. And if we don't learn wisdom, God's wisdom of how to, we're going to make mistakes and it's going to cost us freedom. It's going to cost us health. It's going to cost us in the long term. So here's if aggressively paid off instead. And you guys know this, but just so extra monthly principal. If you don't pay anything extra, your first payment $184. It takes you 5.7 years, $4,200 of interest. But if you pay just $200 more a month, okay, that cuts your time down to under 2 years, more than half. And it cuts out $2,700 of interest. Cuts out a lot of interest to the bank if you're paying extra principal payments. You know, you pay $500 extra principal, it's going to cut down to about 12 months, and you're going to only be paying $750 in interest rather than the $4,200. So this can apply to a school loan. It can apply to an auto loan, not just credit card. It can apply to your house.
I would say for your house, somebody told me years ago, if you make one extra mortgage payment a year,
Okay.
you can take years off your mortgage.
Yep.
And something I learned through trying to just pay a little bit extra, because I did take several years off my mortgage, but something I learned is that it's really more important to do it in the first 5 years of your house. Because mostly you're paying then interest, so So it multiplies exponentially if you can.
Right. And technology is wonderful because you can go online now and you can find where you can plug in your numbers and it will give you an amortization chart, and you can see if you give $200 more and it will reprogram the whole thing, and you can see how quickly, if I pay an extra principal payment each month or extra $50 from my paycheck already taken out directly it's going to cut off 2.5 years off my 30-year mortgage. Or whatever. Yep.
$25 a month extra in the beginning makes huge.
But like you said, yeah, it's much better to pay off more now in the beginning, right? Yep. All right, so here, look, this is where it gets interesting, and I'm going to end in a way that you guys don't expect. It's going to be fantastic. Might be too late for many of you, but as long as we know, we can help you guys all have children, grandchildren, right? And I think sometimes when we leave, when grandparents die or parents die and they leave an inheritance, if they don't know how to manage the money well, how many stories have you heard about just blowing it, wasting it? It's just, yeah. So we need to pass on financial wisdom to the younger generations. All right, debt breakdown in a 30-person church. Yep, right, approximately, right. So just the average, 16 people would pay it off monthly. 14 people would be debt carriers month to month. Of the 14, you got 5 people who would be carrying debt for under a year, let's just say 6 months. 4 people who would carry debt between 1 to 3 years. 2 people who would carry debt between 3 to 5 years. And there's going to be 3 people that have been paying on their credit card for over 5 years. 5 beyond, okay? So total interest to the bank in 1 year among us. 5 people who carry debt for under a year, that's 6 months, 6 times $650 in interest. This is just the average. We're going with $6,500 and no new purchases. It comes out to $3,200 of total interest this year. The other 9 people who are paying for the whole year of interest, they're paying $1,300. It comes out to $11,700. So in 1 year, just in 1 year, in a church our size, $15,000 on average is what's going to the bank in interest, just for credit cards. Not talking about any other, not talking about cars, not talking about mortgage, just credit cards. $15,000 in a church our size is going to the bank. Now, you get a much larger church, it's going to be a huge number, all right? Now, you think about, now this was a strong term. It might not necessarily be true in 100% of the cases, but maybe it's too strong, maybe I should erase it, but I say mismanaged. And I say, wow, that's, because as Robin said, sometimes we just never train. We don't know. Sometimes it's survival purchase. You have to do this. And your limitations in a particular season of life, you're so constrained, you don't have anything else to do. And I get that. I get that. So I'm not talking to you if you're in that situation. We've all been there. All right. An alternative, okay? Now, my numbers are a little bit wrong here because anybody who charges on your credit card, you're going to get cash back. But usually cash back on a credit card is going to pay 1 to 2%, right, on average. So I was just assuming, just work with me here again, the numbers might be off, but let's just say somebody charges on their credit card, or a family, a household, $2,000 a month, and the average is 1.5% average rewards. That would come out to about $360 a year cash back from the credit card company. So if you use the credit card responsibly, or anybody, actually anyone who uses the credit card is going to get cash back. But if you're spending $2,000 a month, 1.5% rewards, $360 at the end of the year. So the average debtor is paying $1,300 to the bank, right? It's probably not $1,300 because if they get the reward, it's about $1,000. But the person who's not doing it at all is just collecting that money, and they're not paying interest. They're just collecting. The credit card company is paying you to use their card. It's unbelievable. And I'm going to get to how this can work in amazing ways. So credit cards used wisely can return $300 a year to you, and card carried balances turn a 1.5% reward into a 22% penalty. So you can either get would you rather have a 1.5% reward or a 22% penalty, depending on how you use it. All right, so the debt carriers. Listen to this. We've been around maybe, let's say, 9 years. So in 9 years, the total amount of money paid to banks, just among our little average, again, average, 30-person church, is $135,000 paid to banks. Now, I would say, could you make the argument that a lot of that might be unnecessary? Perhaps. And if we were responsible users of credit, $360 cash back times 14. Now, this is not all of us. This is just those who were paying the balance each and every month. Having that balance is $45,000. So, again, the real loss is not just the interest paid or the lost rewards. It's the emotional stress. It's the lost investment growth, lost giving capacity. So, 2 people. One paying interest to the bank, one getting cash back, no debt, paying it off each month, and investing that money that the credit card company gives them. Listen to this. This is amazing. This is literally mind-blowing, okay? All right, imagine from age 20 to age 67. I just picked 67 because it's full retirement age for Social Security benefits. Age 20 to 67. Imagine this. You would have transferred, just on the average, $65,000. Just you would have transferred $65,000 to the bank in that time. Just for credit card, not for anything else. Not for the car, not for the house. Just credit card at $6,500. And that's assuming no new purchases. That's like, this is less than what the number would actually be. Person B. All right, now I'm not trying to brag here, but I am in this category. From the earliest age, I had a credit card, okay? I'm taking that money and investing it. The average amount that you can get, so an ETF is like a basket of stocks. S&P 500, 500 largest companies in America. So if you invest in the S&P 500 itself, okay? The average growth in the last 50 years is about 10% a year. So if you took only what the credit card gave you once a year, 360, and you had it invested from the age, you're doing it from the age of 20 all the way up to 67, you'd have $300,000 for retirement. And that is only what the credit card company pays you. That's not your own money. That's just what the credit card company, $300,000 in savings for retirement. That is mind-blowing. Here's why it's mind-blowing. Because the average person, I said, well, I got to know averages again. The average retirement, the median, okay, so that means of 300 million, 350 million people, the middle, so 150 million people have at retirement, their retirement savings is less than 200,000. Okay? Now, the average retirement savings today at age 65 is 600,000. But the reason why the average is 600,000 and the median, the middle, that means half the people make less than this and half the people have more than this, is because you got people like Elon Musk that have billions of dollars, so it skews the average much higher, okay? So the median is probably much more accurate. Half of people in America retire at age 65 with less than 200,000 in retirement savings. So we rely on Social Security or if you work as a fireman for 20 years or you get government pension, whatever. But so if we would have known this back in high school, right? And we would have applied these principles of just investing, using the credit card responsibly, and then when we get the cash back at the end of the year, we cash it out and we put it in investment. That investment's growing. We do that every year for 47 years. We would have, just on the credit card, $300,000 $300,000 in savings, we would be above the middle. We'd be better than 175 million people just doing the credit card's own money. All right? That's not even including, what if you put another $300, $350 of your own money a year? That's not much. That's like $36. I mean, that's nothing. You'd have double that. More than probably double. All right, so here's the lesson. Solomon, this guy knew his stuff. The plans of the diligent, that's a key word, surely lead to abundance. Kristen was teasing me this morning because this woman, I'm telling you, I don't know how she does it. She's so disciplined. I feel convicted. I feel terrible. It's so easy to live by feelings, and she just lives by principle. Like, it doesn't care how she feels, she's going to execute. She's going to do it. It doesn't matter if it's midnight and one of the kids comes and asks her something, like she's going to help. She's going to sacrifice. She's just going to do it. She's like, I just do it. I'm like, how the heck do you? She's like, I just do it. Just do it. So she is hardworking. She doesn't live on feelings. The plans of the diligent. She's intentional. Surely lead to abundance, but everyone who is reckless, that Hebrew word is the word for somebody who just makes quick decision without thinking. It's a reckless decision. It's an emotional decision. It's like, I just make an emotional. How many of us have ever made emotional purchases that we later regretted? We're like, dang it, why the heck did I buy that? Now it's too late, And we make an emotional, and it says you only become poor. But everyone who is reckless, hasty, emotional becomes poor. That's Solomon's wisdom for you. So Americans are not saving. We don't save money. We don't. Our expenses, our lifestyle always rises to match our wages. So if our wages go up, we get a promotion, automatically 99% of us will increase. Well, I can afford a new car. I can afford a bigger house. Instead of saving that difference and just staying at the same, I have a friend, an acquaintance, and school teacher, and he invested in Bitcoin early on. The guy, we're talking when it was only a couple $100, and it went up to 120,000. He became a millionaire. Millions and millions, just a regular school teacher. He retired in his 40s. I'm like, what in the world? How you retired in his 40s? And he explained it, and I was like, he saw it. He saw it before anyone else saw it. But you know what? To give him credit, you go to his house, he's still driving the exact same car. He bought a house, like a fixer-upper. It was like $75,000 fixer-upper house, And I'm like, wow. Anybody else would have said, oh, I'm rich, I'm selling this, we're moving up. Just living the same old basic life. Like, I got to respect that. That's amazing. So Americans are not saving. We're not investing. We're often paying interest instead of earning interest. And the amazing thing, and Sonia loves money. She's the finance team's probably like, of course they know this. But are we embracing biblical wisdom of self-discipline, simplicity, contentment, savings, stewardship? We're to think like we are God's money managers. We are to be stewards of His resources, not our resources. We can't just spend whatever we want whenever we want to. It's God's money. It's God's resources. And of course, we haven't even talked about house, car, student loans. So the average person pays about $500,000 in interest over the course of their lifetime. That's just interest. That's not even taxes. Taxes is a whole nother story. All right? So in interest, you are literally working for years for the banks. Doesn't that ticks me off. I don't want to work for any bank. I want to work for myself and for him. All right? But we are working for years and years and years and years to pay just the banks, if we don't exercise the wisdom to know how to do things a bit different. So small little habits, either quietly build freedom or they quietly increase bondage. The small things are the big things. Remember in baseball, I used to play that all the time. When I was a kid, all throughout high school, it's like the little things. They were always like, even in wrestling, in any sport, it's the small little technical things. You do those well, you're going to win the game. Small things. Most people don't realize the compounding effect of interest in either direction. Interest can either compound against you or for you. We got to use it where it's for us. So, let me switch. What do I do now? I'm in a mess. I need help. I need rescue. First of all, whenever God points it out to me, I just confess. I admit I messed up. Whatever it is, just confess it. I'm a poor steward. God, you own everything. I just manage your money. I would say, you know what? If you're not tithing, and we'll talk about this in the future, but I'm not legalistic here, but God says he owns everything. And he says, if you'll trust me by giving the first 10% back to me, I will bless the other 90%. But if you keep all of it or keep most of it, you're on your own, okay? And so over and over again, I have found and I have seen and I've heard the testimonies of a ton of people say when they began to trust God and give him the first 10%, supernatural things happened with the rest of their income. God supernaturally and abundantly blessed them with everything else. Okay? The other thing, that's number one. So what was number one? Admit, ask God for help. And I put tithing in there. All right, stop the bleeding immediately. Stop using the card. No more. Cut temporarily, okay? Switch to cash. You'll feel it more. Don't let interest exist. Never let interest. I see interest in my life. Interest is an enemy. I don't like it. I want to cut it out. I want to root it out wherever it's. And you know what? And every vehicle purchase except one, I paid cash. The whole thing. I saved it up, paid for it, and I never bought a vehicle unless I could pay. So I couldn't buy the $40,000 vehicle. I could only buy the $15,000 vehicle. And I just paid cash. And the other one was the interest rate was so low and I was paying extra anyway. It was oh, gotta work on it. All right. So here's the ideal. Never go into debt except on your home. And I wouldn't buy something unless you already had the money in your account to immediately pay it off. No unnecessary purchases. Don't buy anything, and don't buy anything unless you get approval from Jesus or your spouse. Have an accountability partner. Make that commitment. I will not buy anything unless I get the approval of my spouse or somebody else and Jesus. If Jesus doesn't want me to buy it, don't buy it. Ask him first. No emotional decision making. You know what we had to do? We had to do creative vacations, cheap vacations, free vacations. If somebody offered us something, like, okay, we'll do it. But if we can't afford $6,000 for a small beach house in the middle of the summer. We'll go in September when it's half price. You know, we got to cut corners. You got to just sacrifice. This is hard to do. No lifestyle upgrades. Eating out. 80%. You understand? I can make whatever you like, I can make it in the home for a fraction of what. Now, eating out is great. It's wonderful. If you got plenty of money, that's fine. Great, wonderful. But that's a big expenditure, all right, eating out. Eat at home. Make your own food. All right? If you need to get out of debt, sacrifice, cut, eat in. Don't eat out. Stop eating out. You're wasting money. All right. Delayed gratification. That is hard. How many of us struggle with delayed gratification? Self-sacrifice and denial. I want to build an emergency fund. They say we should have 3 to 6 months of savings. Solomon, Proverbs 6:6, go to the ant. He says, consider the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. The ant, what does the ant do? It's thinking in advance. It's always storing up. It's like winter's coming. I've got to save. It's saving. It was in the context of savings. Saving. Storing up. Thinking about the rainy day. Thinking about, oh, you know what? my vehicles are working fine, but what if something breaks and I got a $500 unexpected? Now, if you don't have money saved, you know what you're going to do? You're going to have to put that on the credit card. And then it's going to wind up costing you more than $500. It's going to wind up costing you $800 once you pay the interest to the bank over the course of. So he's saying save up money so that when you do have an emergency, you don't have to rely on credit and pay extra interest. You can just. So creating a savings fund, an emergency fund, incredibly important. If you've got debt, 2 proven methods: either pay the smallest balance off first for a quick win, or pay the highest interest rate first. Either one works. Increase your income. Sell something. Have a yard sale. Pick up overtime, side work. Temporary extra effort and intensity shortens the pain dramatically. You got to pay it off. You're paying that bank thousands in interest. Dave Ramsey has Financial Peace University. It's a stewardship class. I think that's a great, and there's a lot of good tools online you can learn about this. I bet you could watch YouTube videos. My friend ChatGPT can answer these questions too. Oh yeah. All right. Sometimes bankruptcy, sometimes it leads to that, right? Or negotiated settlements, structured repayment plan. All right, so this is my last slide, and then I wanted DJ. We need to teach the next generation what to do. Part of my responsibility with my kids is to teach them of how to handle money wisely. And I can do that through, son, I know some of you guys have boats. The first thing that came to mind was boat. But okay, I'll choose something else. Son, I made this purchase that I later regret because it's cost a pool. I heard somebody, does anybody have a pool? Okay. I heard from a friend of mine who had a pool growing up his whole life. He's like, it was like $5,000 just to maintain the pool every year. Not to mention putting it in, installing it. It's $5,000. Now he had a big pool. It was big. The hot tub was spilling over into all right. But it's expensive. And if you're not willing to put all that time and energy and work into it, let's say you buy something that you later regret. Don't do what I did. We can teach through mistakes. We can teach through successes. Hey, son, I was able to pay off my mortgage in 20 years instead of 30. Save this much interest. Consider this. Offer accountability. Offer encouragement. I think mentoring, we talk about discipleship, but discipleship is not just, how do I understand this verse of Scripture? Discipleship is, hey, I'm struggling with this relationship. How do my marriage, or my finance, my pocketbook. So how do I invest? How do I save? So we can offer accountability and encouragement. And I want to exhort you guys, regardless of what age you're at. I mean, we all, whether it's your mistakes, whether it's your successes, or a combination of the two, the next generation needs to know it. Your grandchildren need to know it. So instead of sending birthday money, or you can be very generous with that, but I wonder how we could partner a word of wisdom. Like with this money, here's the expectation. A third goes to savings. Part of it goes to give back to God, because God is the source of all things. You need to put Him first, and you take the rest. I want you to take $10 out of this 100, and I want you to serve somebody. Buy a gift for somebody. Do something for somebody on your street, and the rest you can spend on yourself. But all that 100 is not for you. You're going to save a portion, give a portion, and you can spend a portion, And that little piece of financial wisdom might go a long way in training them up. So, with that said, DJ, do you want to come up for a second? And where is that at? That way? Who's crying? Here, let me put this on you real quick.
Are you going to give him a second?
Huh?
You said come up for a second.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm DJ. All right, thanks. All right, so last Sunday I was talking to the pastor about this service. I was telling him a lot of this resonated with me because I came from the lowest percentage he was talking about. So I had exuberant amounts of credit card debt, at least $20,000 that I'd been paying for at least 5 years at the time. And so I became saved when I was 26, and my life was changing, as you can imagine, radically as I started following the teachings of the Lord. And when I was 28, one day I call it an epiphany, because there was no leading up, at least that I was aware of, right? There probably was supernaturally, obviously, but it wasn't just in my face. Like, someone didn't lay a book down and say, read this. Just one day, I just had a thought in my mind where I just realized that I was mismanaging my money, and to be a good Christian, I needed to rectify that with God, that I was actually sinning against God by doing that. So it was very difficult, because I had, at the time in my 20s, I was making more than the average American man in his 20s was making, but I was living check to check. And when I say check to check, I don't mean like I had $5 left over. I mean like 2 days before my next paycheck, I had no money, and I was just using credit cards to eat out and buy things off Amazon, whatever the case was. Yeah. So, yeah, Amazon packages all day, every day, showing up to the door. Like I had a business flowing out of there. But so the Lord gave me this revelation that it wasn't the amount of money that I was making, but it was that I was mismanaging it. And so I started actually thinking about this, and I started consuming lots of personal finance books. Some of these you probably heard of. If you haven't, I recommend these two I'm about to say is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read The Richest Man in Babylon. These are books that are just about money, personal finances. Some other books I've read that I don't really encourage, like Fast Lane Millionaire, things like that. But I started reading these books, started learning about interest rates, how these things work. I went to Dave Ramsey's resources just because that was a Christian source. I didn't know anything about Dave Ramsey, never even heard of him before, but he was a Christian, so was I. So I was like, all right, this is where I'm going. And one thing that he said when I watched YouTube videos, didn't pay for a single part of any of his material. I got it all off YouTube. But I watched a TED Talk that Dave Ramsey gave, and he was disputing an argument during the TED Talk about if there's better ways to do it than his way. And he said his counter to that was, yes, but if we were doing math, we wouldn't be in this predicament to begin with. And that really resonated with me, because I wasn't doing math in my finances. I was just living my life with the mindset of I was broke because I needed more money because the system is broken and they want to put the working man down. And really, I was just my own worst enemy, because I was not paying attention at all to the amount of money I was spending. So we started doing the snowball method that Dave Ramsey has. We started with the smallest amount of debt that we had until we paid that off, and then we took that money, we put it to the next one, we put it to the next one. When my wife and I did, which it took some convincing from my wife too, because she was deep in this mindset too, right? We lived this way together. And when we did a budget for the first time, it was like the clouds opened and a beam of light just shined into our house. It was like, holy cow, this is crazy. We had way more money going out than we had coming in. And we did a budget every month. In fact, I still do that. To this day now, I still do that because it's a habit that I formed. And so after 4 years, that's when I was 28. By the time I was 32, I had all my debt paid off except my mortgage. And I was selling everything. If it was not nailed down, I was selling it to pay. I'm not kidding. I was. I know some of y'all are probably thinking, did you have a motorcycle? No, I didn't. I borrowed one from someone so I could ride it for free. And I had my video games. I had a bunch of PlayStation games. I sold every single game someone would buy. I sold everything that if it didn't have sentimental value, or if I hadn't used it in the last month, I was selling it. It was gone. And even my electronics, some of my laptops, whatever the case was, I was selling those. And as I educated myself on interest rates, how they work, I do not use credit cards. I will not encourage anyone to use a credit card. If you are the person who can use a credit card and pay it off monthly and get the cash back, I actually work with a guy who does this. He uses his credit card, he pays it off every month, and he gets points back, and then he uses those points and he invests them, and he's brilliant. He's an engineer, he has an analytical mind, he's a genius. 99.97% of everyone else in the world cannot do that. I couldn't do it because after I paid off my credit cards, guess what happened? a year later, I was back in credit card debt, about $5,000 worth, because I was like, oh yeah, I know how interest rates work now. I'm going to use my card. I'm going to pay it off every month. I'm not going to. I couldn't handle it. I still can't handle it, so I don't have them. If I can't buy it in cash, I can't afford it. And if I want to use debt, I typically do it in a strategic way, and I try and leverage it. For example, I have gotten high interest loans to get promotional deals, and then I would take HELOCs out against my equity to lower my interest rate, and then I would pay that off. If you are not disciplined, do not do that. If you have no idea what I just said, please do not go to the bank and tell them you want a HELOC. Do your research, please. Please. I don't encourage anyone to do what I did, but I did do those things. I did educate myself. I did learn. I did go to the bank and get a HELOC, and I dropped my total interest rate that I was paying was over 40%. It was like 76% in interest when I added up all of my debt. And by the time I had paid it off, I was only paying 9%. And that was through every day studying, learning, whatever the case was. And I believe, and this is why he wanted me to speak, that leads up to this. I believe that moment when I had that revelation, it was God himself who put that thought in my mind. I did not come up with that on my own, because I was entrenched. And months into this journey, I had validation that I was on the right path, and this is what really sealed the deal that this was the Lord's doing, was that I was working on a job, and there was a guy working with me, an older gentleman. He was clearly, I would say, probably in his early 60s. Me and him were working side by side, so, you get to talking and everything. So I asked him, so when do you plan on retiring? He said, oh, I am retired. I said, well, you don't look retired to me. This isn't my idea of retirement. He said, well, I had to go back to work because it was way more expensive to live than I thought it was going to be, and I didn't save up enough money. And, insurance is way higher, groceries are way higher, and I didn't account for that, so I had to go back to work. So, being that I was in this mindset, the first thing I did when I got home, how much money do you really need to save up? How do you do it? So I got information from a source called Mr. Money Mustache, and I would recommend that to anyone. That information is still really great. And if you do the math on if you're going to draw up to 4%, you can go a little higher than that, but around 4% is usually what they recommend. In today's economy, if you want to have like $5,000 a month, you need to have almost $3 million invested. That's not $3 million on a table. That's $3 million invested in the stock market that you're getting returns on so you can live on the returns. And so it was like, wow, I'm young enough, I can do this. That was like the icing on the cake, that I did not want to be that guy, And I did not want to be the guy where I was my own self-enemy until it was too late, and until I was mature enough to realize it. I feel so passionately about this still that after I paid off all of my debt, and my wife and I were doing really well, and God was blessing us, I decided I'm going to go get a college degree in this. And currently I am working on a bachelor's degree in finance, which I'm paying for in cash, by the way, $58,000 of my own money that I invested over a long period of time in a retirement fund. I'm able to draw that money without penalty to pay for my college degree. Nice. And so my point to that I also wanted to speak this is because it's most of the time it's a combination of two things, in my opinion, which I was going to college for corporate finance, but I've met so many people who struggle with their finances that I'm actually changing the main focus to personal finance instead of corporate, because the corporations know how to make money. It's off of us not knowing how to make money. And so I really want to help. I really want to help individuals. And that's why I wanted to say this, because a lot of people, it's a combination of two things, in my opinion. One, it is ignorance, but it's willful ignorance. It's normally, in my opinion, it's, I know that I could do better, right? Everyone understands the concept of saving, but there's something else that's feeding into why they're not going to want to do that. And two, the system is rigged against us. That's just the nature of the beast. Life is rigged against us. We are in a fallen world, and we are designed institutionally from birth to be worker bees, to pay our taxes, to pay our interest, to pay whatever the case is. I meet people all the time who say, well, if you're going to make it in today's world, you have to go into debt. That's not true. I know a guy who's my age and he just bought his first house for $250,000 cash. He wrote a check. And me and him make the same amount of money each year. So I know how much he's making. But he had a father who was a real estate agent. And his father taught him when he was a teenager, this is how you make money, this is how you gain wealth. And it doesn't take an exorbitant amount of time. There is luck involved, but it's not just, oh, well, he got a big inheritance. No, he had someone, just like the pastor, who fed into him at a young age. There's another gentleman named Scott Trench, and then I'm going to wrap this up because I know I'm rambling on. He's 34 years old. He's a self-made millionaire. Same thing. Started when he was 18. Did not have anything handed to him on a silver platter. He had a father who was a banker. His father taught him the ways of money, how it works. At 34 years old, he was a millionaire in real estate and not in bad debt. So in my experience, there's a common denominator between people who build wealth and people who don't, is having bad debt. That is the common denominator. People who have bad debt typically are not going to be the ones who are wealthy. The ones who are wealthy don't have bad debt. They may have debt, but they have it in a different way. That's a whole different conversation. So,
But one of the things that stood out from what you said is people, it's very easy to point the finger and say it's because of this, it's because of this, it's because I don't have the raise, it's because of this. But God said, no, the finger needs to be pointed back to you.
Yeah.
You need to take responsibility. You need to learn. You need to grow. You need to be self-disciplined. You need to cut out this. You need to. So really, a lot of times, it's very easy, not just in money issues, but to point the finger at, if my spouse was only this, if this person, my boss was on, it's like, no. You need to grow. You need to change. You need to take personal responsibility. And I could definitely see him doing this for a life.
yeah, for sure. And I agree with you. And that was a lot of the revelation that I had was that it was my fault. It was my fault that I was in the financial situation that I was in. And I think a lot of people are stuck there because of the reasons you said.
Well, can you just close us out and pray for the unstuckness?
The unstuckness?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know, whatever the Lord leads to break these, because this is really